Joe Biden's new administration, which will take place for him at 12:01 tomorrow.
It might be in
that's going to be one of the problems he faces. There's also Iran that may be testing what's going on. North Korea testing Biden as well. So at this point, I don't believe any cabinet members have been approved. And I was kind of curious how important that is, how fast that may happen, and if he doesn't have somebody in place that is one of his nominees, his selections, what does that mean? How does that impact any kind of policy?
Well, it shouldn't impact policy with bureaucracies, but of course you want your trusted advisors, your hand-picked people to run those departments. I can assure you this, the Trump people are going to disappear quickly at 12:01, and you're going to have career diplomats then being in acting positions. That's never a good first choice for an administration. So Joe Biden's first order of business is to get his cabinet and sub-cabinet approved by the Senate. I believe a lot of his nominees should move swiftly. I don't think there's going to be much of a fight with many of them, but there could be a fight with some of them. So the battle is certainly going to ensue in the next 100 days for Joe Biden as he tries to get the executive branch staffed up.
What about this plan that we just heard John Gizzi talking about, sharing power in the Senate? How would that impact the Biden administration working to overcome and replace some of the policies of the Trump administration?
Well, I think it's going to put the brakes on the more radical, progressive policies that he talked about in the campaign. That's not going to be possible because he just doesn't have the numbers. He doesn't have the majorities either in the House or the Senate. And as John pointed out in his report, with an equally divided Senate, you have some benefit, but not the benefit to jam through the kind of historic legislation that Joe Biden talked about, especially if you're going to pack the court. That's not going to happen, the Supreme Court, that is, and some of the other more radical agenda of the president with the new Green Deal, the kind of money that's being bandied around, that's not going to happen. The most important thing in the Senate is the fact, as John pointed out, they have the chairmanships. The chairmanships are very important. You set the agenda. But they're going to have to deal with Republicans whether they like it or not, because Kamala Harris is not going to be living up on the Hill.
You mentioned 100 days, and I know typically 100 days is considered the magic number to try to get things done. I was wondering whether there was something that was actually more of a reality, because we know that Congress, in the House at least, they start running for office pretty early. Does that come after Labor Day? Does that come even before the recess in August? Why is 100 days? Is 100 days really magic, or is that just used as shorthand?
Well, I can tell you that it was very important. I helped plan the first 100 days of George W. Bush's administration. I was a director of scheduling and appointments. The 100 days was vital because everybody keys off that. It's or a symbolic number, but if you don't have your cabinet staffed up, if you're not setting the agenda legislatively and in foreign policy, then you've really missed a step. Because remember, you have just the spring to get some of your agenda through before there's a recess in the summer, and then people are talking, even though it's a year away, about the midterms. There are certain things that presidents have to do, summits, the UNGA in September, but look to two important speeches that are really give you a sense of where this country, one of course is the inaugural address tomorrow, and then within the next 30 days, follow the pattern of a joint address to Congress. He's not going to give a State of the Union because he hasn't been in office a year, but that's where he gives us the mouth.
All right. Good to know. Thank you for your insight, Brad. A pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Folks, back in the day, this is where we asked you to download our app. If I figured, I'm not left-handed, so I can't do that, but I can do that with my right thumb. You can see how quickly that pops up, and that goes right into the interview we were just doing. Keep that in mind. You can download our app to an iPhone, as I have here, my trusty little 6S. That's how updated I am. And you can do it to your Android phone, the Newsmax app, absolutely free, Newsmax TV, as opposed to, by the way, if you want to get to CNN, MSNBC, that kind of network, you typically have to go through a subscription, but not the case here.
No, we are absolutely free, and millions of people have already figured that out, and they've downloaded the app. They're watching it on their OTT devices, so you should too, of course. It takes less than a minute, we promise, so you can do it during this commercial break to download it on either your iPhone or your Android phone. Newsmax TV is the app, one of the most downloaded free apps in the store. Head on over now, and we know that you'll like it.
All right. Coming up, more of American Agenda. We'll be back.
But a Biden official says members of the caravan could be disappointed because they might not get into the U.S. right away. And Parler CEO John Mace says he's confident the social media site will be back online by the end of the month. Mace says there's significant progress being made, and when people log in, it doesn't error out. Parler has been down since Amazon's web service cut off the hosting service, which Parler is suing to restore. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Amanda. Well, President-elect Joe Biden released his nearly $2 trillion economic plan, and it clearly shows he plans to run up the deficit with a lot of spending. Joining us now to discuss exactly how big the deficit will get under Biden is economist and Trump 2016 economic advisor Stephen Moore. Stephen, what gets your attention the most in this $1.9 trillion so-called rescue package?
Well, it's not just the price tag, and you're right to call out the massive increase in debt we're talking about. And don't forget that we just passed the $900 billion health emergency bill. What was that, 2 or 3 weeks ago? So the ink is barely dry on that deal, and now along comes Biden with another $1.9 trillion on top of that. We're talking about trillions here. When I first came to Washington 30 years ago, we talked about the budget in the billions. Now we're talking about it in the trillions. Gives you a little sense of how times have changed. But it's not just that massive price tag, which will all be paid for with debt. It's the fact that it's not a healthcare relief bill. It's just a social welfare wish list of spending. You know, Bernie Sanders probably wrote this bill because it's got everything he wants in there. Minimum wage of $15 an hour, paid parental leave, $450 billion for the blue state bailout, $130 billion giveaway to teachers unions. I could go on and on and on. But this is really a payback to all the interest groups who helped elect Joe Biden president.
You know, Stephen, over the past 4 years, the debt has ballooned to what, $21 trillion from $14 trillion. That's where we started off 4 years ago. How much debt is too much debt? And then how do we pay for it?
It's a great question. You know, again, when I first came to Washington in around 1984, I'll never forget we had our first $1 trillion debt. And, you know, it went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 8 to 10 to 12, 15. You know, and now we're at 27 trillion. If we pass this new spending bill on top of Biden's budget, we're talking about a $30 trillion debt. You raised a great question, and that's what every economist is wondering. How much longer can this continue? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anyone knows exactly the answer. I do know this, though, that this story doesn't have a happy ending. I mean, show me a country in the history of the world that's massively increased debt. I mean, you go back to the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire. We should learn these lessons that one of the things that kills an empire is massive debt that can't be repaid. It cheapens the currency, and then you get, you know, economic decline. I pray that doesn't happen. We still have the luxury of these low interest rates, but even those, if you noticed in the last couple of weeks, even those interest rates are starting to creep up.
Yeah, and in fact, that leads me to my next question. Is this a scenario setting up in which the value of the dollar is going down, interest rates are coming up, we're throwing a lot of money into it, Keynesian or modern monetary theory, whatever's at work, a lot of money, is that going to bring back inflation, or do we stand the risk of having, like Japan, the lost decade?
Another tough question. You ask tough questions because, you know, we've been wondering this for a long time. When is inflation going to come back? I mean, when I was in high school and college, you know, I remember the days when we had 10, 12, 14% inflation, where every time you went to the store, remember that? Things would be more expensive. They put higher prices on everything. We're starting to see some signs of inflation. Have you noticed the gas prices, guys? Have you noticed that those are going up? Yeah. Here where I live, just in the last couple of weeks, they've gone up 15 to 20 cents a gallon. And higher prices are likely to come with oil prices and gasoline prices. So, but I have to say this also: inflation is still pretty moderate. You know, we're probably looking at about a 2 to 2.5% interest inflation rate right now. That's lower than the 1.5% we had before, but it's still pretty moderate. But I like Steve Forbes' idea, by the way. What do you do when you're worried about rising inflation? One hedge against inflation is to own gold. So I do like gold, and I like inflation hedges right now. Everybody in their investment portfolio should own some gold. By the way, if you look at what's happened to the Bitcoin price, up, 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 that's an alternative to the dollar.
What are your thoughts on Janet Yellen? I'm wondering about that because, you know, she's been in these positions before, possibly under the Biden administration, maybe as Treasury Secretary back in the 1990s. She was the chief economic advisor, and of course, being the chair of the Federal Reserve in the 2010s.
You know, I know Janet Yellen. I have respect for her. I don't always agree with her, but I think among all the people that Joe Biden could have chosen, I think she's one of the best choices. She's a professional. She's a good economist. She just testified, I forget whether it was earlier today or yesterday, on the minimum wage, and she was saying, you know, she was taking the Biden line that this isn't going to hurt jobs. I beg to differ with her. I think when you raise the minimum wage, the evidence is pretty clear that the minority and teenage unemployment rate goes up. So we are going to be pricing a lot of our younger workers out of jobs. I worry about that. But she's a professional, and I think she was a good choice for Joe Biden.
All right, Stephen
Moore. By the way, some of the other people he's put in some of these positions, I'm not so wild about, but I think she'll be one of the more level-headed Biden appointees.
I pause there because I keep saying this is to use a word we keep using, unprecedented time, because you have all of these folks whose businesses have been destroyed because of the lockdowns and the coronavirus, and then you add on top of that a demand that they increase the minimum wage, and I just don't know how people are going to recover.
You know, I think it's such a great point, and can you think of a worse time to be raising the minimum wage? I mean, I don't have a big problem with raising the minimum wage when the economy's really booming and there's a lot of jobs out there.
Guys
but we've got 10 million unemployed people right now. And on top of that,
like
what? The minimum wage.
It's on PBS.
It's bars, it's small mom and pop stores. Hey, those businesses are barely keeping their head above water. Yep. Now you're going to clobber them with a $15 minimum wage. You are exactly right. This is the worst time to be raising the minimum wage.
All right. Stephen Moore, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we'll be back with more of American Agenda, including the latest on the coronavirus. And be sure to check out
Illegal's Perfect.
And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers along with Bob Sellers. We do have some breaking news to report to you at this hour, an update to a report we did earlier on Capitol security. We can tell you now that the Associated Press is reporting that 12 U.S. Army National Guard members have been removed from the presidential inauguration duty after they were found to have ties to right-wing militia groups or they posted extremist views online. Now, this is according to two U.S. officials who spoke with the Associated Press.
12 people
now
were
12 U.S. Army National Guard
members. You can't post shit like that online and not expect them to do something about it.
Earlier, you may recall we had reported that 2 had been. That number has now been increased to 12. So we'll have much more on this development a little bit later in the show. But right now, let's check.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. Now turning our attention to the coronavirus crisis.
Judge in 1400s.
Oh, we still got to watch American
Skins. People call for masks to be mandated for 100 days. Recent studies suggest that communities with high reported mask wearing
first.
are most likely to be able to control transmission.
Yeah, we got to order in paper. That's a
Joining us with some medical insight, emergency room physician and author of Living and Dying.
got to order on Prime or something like that.
Dr. Davis, thanks for joining us.
Amazon Prime?
I assume you would be behind the mask wearing.
Pretty sure
really, from your experience, make that much of a difference?
Yeah, absolutely it does, Bob. I mean, what I've come to realize is that practicing the defense of mask wearing is the best offense, and that's what I've seen sort of play over and over again in the hospitals and in my surroundings. Those who wear masks are less likely to pick up the virus or contract the virus. So it's important to sort of practice these defensive mechanisms of social distancing, mask wearing and hand hygiene, but the number one most important thing is the mask. And I know it's cumbersome. I know it's a situation that we are all exhausted by, but it saves lives. It's what's the number one thing for us to do in order to prevent the coronavirus and prevent us from spreading it to other ones, our loved ones especially.
Dr. Davis, what about these new strains? I know that we had talked about this previously, but we now know that there's a new strain different from the variant that we had previously reported from the UK, also one from South Africa. Now there's this new one that has appeared in California, and a new one in California, today, which Amanda just told us about in Germany. So should this be of concern when we're all, prepared now to go in and get these vaccines?
Yeah, I mean, the virus is very smart. The virus needs humans to live. And so it's going to do what it needs to do to survive. So it's going to change its outer shell, its protein mechanism in order to survive and to thrive. And so that's part of the process. The good thing we all can do right now is, again, either get vaccinated if we're lined up to do so, or practice our defense of wearing the mask and social distancing and hand hygiene.
When we see the stories of the new strains, I don't know why.
Everybody not taking the vaccine.
It's certainly a topic to talk to you about. But when somebody comes in and they're tested, does that end up somewhere so that they're actually studying these things? And
where do the test results go?
That changes the way you treat it, because it sounds like at this point there isn't anything different.
You hungry,
Yeah, there's nothing different.
Not
That's
right
a great
now.
question, Bob. I think what we're seeing is that we study these sort of surge, where the surge is taking place, and where the sort of rise in the virus is the most sort of egregious.
What up? Good evening.
Surplus. And so we look at these areas and say, okay, this seems to be a hot spot area. So what we have to figure out is the same virus we're dealing with, is the more contagious sort of variant of the virus. And then we go on and we study the kind of genetic component of the virus to see what we are with it. But at the same time, I think the treatment is still the same. The vaccination obviously is the cure, the sort of the gold ticket. But also what we're doing in the hospital is the same thing. We're still practicing the same medication regimen. We're still practicing the same sort of treatment modalities of turning the patient prone into that. They haven't compromised, so we're doing everything as normal.
That's what I'm saying.
Oi. Let me get cold water in there, is it?
I thought you was about to say a different runner. I was about to say sure. But I wish it's nice. You want one of the blancos?
Just give me no.
No blanco, no backwood.
No, that's why I bought these.
But you bought blancos.
Yeah, and I bought these too. That's your problem. That first. You don't do that. Can I get a water, please? Yo, Creation, what's up, bro? Good evening. Welcome to another after work stream. We were working on some art yesterday. We were working on that piece right there for a little while, trying to start at detailing the background, but fortunately, hey, I picked up a couple more commissions, so D1, what up, bro? So I'll be working on some commissions for the next couple weeks. I say whenever I get a commission, all of my stuff, my personal stuff gets put to the side until I can get my clients out the way. So I already sketched up and prepped the canvas for this commission, and I just have it sitting in front of the heat right now drying, and I already have some oil paints on my palette, and we'll be starting an underpainting here shortly. I'll check it out. Sex Panther. You been to the adult novelty store? What the fuck what you over there getting, bro? I gotta spice it up.
Speaking of adult stores,
Yeah.
today is ladies' night. Remember?
Oh yeah, we did pass that sign. Yeah.
So while they wrap it in that thing just to give you that, when they could just do it like the blunt bills.
That shit look crazy.
Got some
You
purple
can't
in
do
it.
that on PlayStation.
Damn, I want to see the little crystals on it.
Yeah, cause this motherfucker need to get a phone. You can send me pictures on the phone, man. So here we go. Do PlayStation now.
So disrespectful. It's not that bad. It's kind of bad.
Yeah.
Well, you can use the weed art thing.
You one of them old school motherfucker like got no digital footprint.
Yeah.
You don't want no digital footprint.
I'm really fucking sleepy today.
Oh wow. See how I did that?
What?
I already used this one twice. I should have 2 papers on it. One of these days I'm gonna vacuum the studio.
I'll probably just do it for you tomorrow.
I'll do it. There might be some stuff on the floor that I might need to keep.
Yeah.
You probably can't see it though.
Really?
What's that say?
I don't wear glasses.
Ooh.
Learn from the best, babe. I told you that you could take the link out of here.
It's all good. That's too much hassle and time. Let's save it for the next one. We'll add this one in that one. In the other ones.
Yeah, I started to have something roll for you when you got home too, but then I was like, let me not, because you might want to smoke up the ball, and you might want to roll a paper.
Yeah, I went to work. We had a few people in the office today, but I went there. I sat at the front desk. 4 people came in the building while I was at the front desk, so I had to take 4 temperatures. And then I sat at my desk and checked some emails. Our grant writer says that she wants to talk to me. Well, she wants to meet with me and our director about a mural project that I have coming up. And oh shit, that means tomorrow I have to change some stuff. But I have a mural project coming up. So I just emailed her and telling her like I'm back in the office, you know, Monday through Friday. So whenever you're ready for a meeting, I'll be ready for a meeting. And then I do this real weird thing at work when I'm bored. I watch model houses being built, like miniature dioramas. And so I sat and watched some people build dioramas for about an hour. And then I walked through the building and sanitized all the doorknobs. And then I sat at my desk for about another hour and watched some painting tutorials. And then I had lunch. Then I went and got gas. And then I went and print out some pictures I need. And then came back to work, took a shit, went back to my desk, watched some YouTube videos, and then came home. I'm tired, man. Having a long, busy day, man. We're sitting at the desk watching YouTube videos all day, man.
Wow.
That shit be strenuous.
So hard. Strenuous on your eyes?
I had to wipe all the doorknobs down.
Oh, so your fingers hurt. Oh,
with
wow.
sanitizer. I had to wear gloves to do that shit too.
Oh, wow. And you had to put lotion on and wash your hands? Wow.
Yeah, bro. I work hard today, yo. I work hard for the money, so you better treat me right.
Yeah, I heard that. Oh, my God.
I'm about to start on this. Well, I've already started on this one. Should be about ready now. Dude, these Dutch leads, you can roll that shit so perfect, yo. Yeah, I finished that one a couple days ago. Like 2 days, 3 days ago. I don't know where I set it at. Oh, it's in the corner back there. Yeah, that's good to go. Alright, probably work on this for about maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And then have me some dinner. Wind it down for work tomorrow. Wind it down, wind it down. Your boy got work in the morning. I'm gonna be at work watching the inauguration tomorrow. Yeah, this one is done, yo. This is a wrap, son. Yeah, appreciate it, bro.
Grandma got the blinged out necklace.
I swear. Grandma been saucy, yo. And that swag. That Sunday best, the little pink outfit. Can't tell her nothing. Alright, well, that goes back in the stash for a while. Ugh. That's an 18 by 24. This is an 18 by 24. It's the same size as grandma and grandbaby. Like I say, this is my standard size canvas. This is the smallest canvas I prefer to work with. And it's the I just set this as my standard. So this is the cheapest canvas you can get. If you get a smaller canvas than this, I'm gonna still charge you my same price. So you might as well get this canvas, because actually the smaller the canvases are, it gets harder to paint in a certain way. So I don't really like painting nothing smaller than that, honestly. But yeah, this canvas and the last one are the exact same size. Both clients opted out on, stepping up a size in canvas, which is okay. Oh, that's good. I be wanting the extra money though. Get a bigger canvas. You sure you ain't want the 24 by 36? It looks so nice. You ain't gotta get the 48-inch canvas. You know what I'm saying? What about a 26 by 30? A little smaller, 6 inches smaller, but hey, if you want the standard size canvas, that's fine. That's why I go there. I'm just saying, man. You'll just notice the difference, you know what I'm saying? These right here, this is okay, babe. These are 20 by 30s right here. If I ain't mistaken, this is 20 by 30. And you just see the size, just, a little bit. And then, I think these right here are, I ain't really sure what size this is. I know that right there is a 24 by 36. And I always just suggest larger paintings. That's only if you have the wall space. Now, if you got a nice sized wall, you ain't want no little painting on a big wall. Yeah, this is the next size up, man. Just one, boop, just one size up. You know what I'm saying? When you walk in the front door, you be like, oh shit, motherfucking art. Alright, since it's, back to my regular work schedule, and I got a commission, I can't sit here and flap my gums for hours like I like to. Gotta get some work done. What we gonna listen to? Oh, I got the DJ in here, the mixologist. You put some Young Pharaoh. I haven't listened. Well, but we haven't listened to him in a minute. I wonder if he got something new.
Well, he also has been chilling because YouTube has really been giving him a hard time. So, he still posts, but he always just says, look, if they take my stuff down, just find my website.
Because, they fact checking them.
They fact checking him, and he keeps talking about, I'm going to take you out of court. I'm going to take you out of court. I think he already went through some shit in court.
All right.
But I like the guy we listened to last night. What was it? Bright Insight?
Yeah, Bright Insight with Chris.
Yo, I literally was thinking about Tesla all day. I already, you know, had done all that research on John G. Trump anyway, but like
Mhm.
now that shit just keeps replaying in my head. Like I cannot get that man out my head because I'm like, yo, this white boy is up here schooling y'all right now. Like, damn.
That's why I subscribe to this channel, yo.
We got no cut
And
part.
he's the first person that ever talked about the reconstruction that I am African. I'm like, nigga, who the fuck told you about this shit? Where'd you get
And
this shit
and
from?
he don't have no cut cards. And he was like,
Nope.
but this is what they teach y'all in school. I was like, look, Brian's like,
And I don't
that's the first thing. I did not type that in. Like,
I
did you
mean,
just type that in? Or
I
that
was
just
watching.
left
No, I
over?
was watching that yesterday. Yeah, I will look up some more of the stuff. Cause he has that one video. I watched it 3 times. How he connects all the megalithic structures to prove, like, yo, there was a global civilization, just like it is now. You have people in China and people in South America, and we know about each other, and we can communicate and we can trade. And he's like, yo, this shit has been like this before. And a lot of people say it, but he takes all that shit and puts it in a nice little video in like, he breaks that shit down in like 25 minutes, yo. Like how there was a global civilization. Then he put me up on the Recot structure, which some people think is Atlantis.
And he's young too.
Yeah, but he was military too, so he already traveled a little bit. He already
figured it out for
yeah,
himself.
he been to Iraq and he's seen some places. So
I knew I heard.
oh, his name is Jimmy, not Chris. Jimmy.
You want to come in or out? Make up your mind. But you can't stand in the doorway. You're not about to get on my nerves. And she's gonna go right over the line. She's so smart. She'll come stand right in the middle of the door, so she's still got an option to come in or out. Smart ass stuff.
No locked doors. No locked
No
doors.
more locked doors. Who taught you to be so smart and so damn stubborn? You stubborn
Yo,
as hell.
J1. The illest.
Hey, hey. Stubborn ass dog. Well, I watched this already, but he was talking about the Capitol riots were staged and infiltrated, and he was talking about Nancy Pelosi. I've seen that, and it's really long, but it was a really interesting video, and if you want to watch that, I can kind of skip around. You know, he rambles a little bit.
Whatever. It don't matter. You got control.
Alright, let's see if he...
I'm waiting for what you call it to go live, yo. Agenda Free TV with Steve Lookner. See what the fuck. I know you're gonna be popping all day tomorrow, yo.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna be on that bitch all day tomorrow.
Young Pharaoh on Leon Kennedy speak on abortion. Okay, this is a 13-minute video, and we're gonna watch it. Let me just go ahead and say, if you want to get an abortion, it's your motherfucking choice.
Abortions
If you don't, it's your choice, but I just know because I know Pharaoh, he about to hit that Planned Parenthood shit.
Yeah.
And that shit is all facts, and that's like, I'm not against
And Margaret Sanger. And
that's the thing, like, I'm not against abortions, like, or whatever, because, like, I've never been pregnant, so I don't really know what it's like, but, like, if I had a 17-year-old daughter and she wanted to get an abortion, like, I wouldn't be against it, I guess, but, like, the older I get, like, I'm just like, nah, abortion's not cool, bro, like, especially because of what they're doing with it, like, maybe one day we're just getting an abortion, but I feel like they're setting us up to get abortions, so, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm kind of against it personally.
And you say it's the #1 killer in the black community. Expound on that for me.
I'm still pro-choice.
Well, for people who like statistics, statistically speaking, over 400, well, approximately 400 to 500,000 abortions happen every year within the black community. And abortion is, statistically speaking, the #1 killer of black people. Not gang violence, not police violence, it is abortions. And what's happening with abortions is things. We are immorally behaving, and we don't want to accept that. And most people who go get abortions, outside of rape victims or people who we would even entertain having a logical excuse for not wanting to keep their child, are people who believe that you don't have to have sexual discipline, and that you can have sex with somebody not only unprotected randomly, but if they get pregnant, you can terminate the baby. So what's happening is, before I even go to the origins of abortion, we have to bring everything back to moral and virtuous behavior. The fact that we don't
That's something that
partake in the developmental process of anything. For example, eating food, right? If we want some food, we just order it. So we don't have any consideration. But
Right now, it wasn't like
Oh, but that's something that I really don't know about. The origin of abortions. Who were the first group of people or first culture that actually decided to undertake that type of medical and surgical procedure? You know, like how long has this shit been in practice, and like the true origins of abortion? Because I know like the origins of Planned Parenthood, but abortions were already taking place before that organization got started. So, yeah, I hope he hits on some shit where he can school me real quick. Play.
Prepare the food because we're not watching the developmental process. So when you take the observation of the developmental process out of a product or service, you take away compassion, you take away consideration, because I'm not aware of it. If I'm not aware of something, I can't be considerate. If I don't see homeless people, I can never develop compassion for homelessness. So if I don't see people gardening, see people cooking, see people preparing food, I don't have compassion. If I don't have compassion, I don't even know how to say thank you. We can order food now, it's dropped at the door. I didn't even say thank you. I don't know if you almost crashed and died on the way over here. I couldn't even thank you if I wanted to. I don't even see you. So when it comes to sex, there's no more developmental process. I don't even have to get to know you. I can just meet you in the club, pay for some vagina, and leave. And if I get pregnant or you get pregnant, you can abort it. So we're actually eliminating the human construct through immediate experience. We're causing ourselves to develop a world where we can experience things so fast, we losing the human side of us. And that human side is interacting with the developmental process of whatever it is we're doing. And when it comes to abortion, the reason abortion is critical is because if we don't look at it from a moral or integral perspective, let's just look at it from self-preservation. If you know somebody wants to kill you, why would you let that person influence you? Margaret Sanger was racist. Before it was called Planned Parenthood, it was called the Negro Project. His father was on the leadership board of this. So everything Bill Gates is doing in Africa and doing in America and trying to do to America, his father is the pinnacle of his behavior. And his father aligned with Margaret Sanger, who Hillary Clinton.
I'm just gonna set up my cell phone for a time-lapse video real quick.
Planned Parenthood, it was called the Negro Project. It was on the leadership board of this. So everything Bill Gates is doing in Africa and doing in America and trying to do to America, his father is the pinnacle of his behavior. And his father aligned with Margaret Sanger, who Hillary Clinton has been quoted saying is someone she considers a mentor. This to specifically genocide the black community.
I'm trying not to get the phone in the PlayStation camera
way. Call them for the KKK. Margaret Sanger has been quoted saying that black people are like weeds who need to be taken out of a garden, and that may not be an exact quote, it may be a paraphrase, but I'll invite you to go look it up. And Margaret Sanger has not only been on record multiple times, clearly stating that she's racist. She's been on multiple times backing up her racism by giving lectures in front of the KKK directly, specifically the women's unit and the women's division. But she created Planned Parenthood, which was placed in a rate of, I believe, 70 to 88% ratio black communities to convince us to abort ourselves. And Planned Parenthood would not exist and such a powerful, or from such a powerful standpoint that it does, if black women and black men psychologically valued each other. The feminist movement, which was an undercover movement used to get black women and black men to not be loyal to each other, is one of the most driving forces, or secretly one of the top driving forces behind Planned Parenthood. Because if you value me, you will value what we create together. The fact that you don't value me, you don't value what we do together. You don't even value us having sex. You don't even value the potential result of us having sex, which is creating the child. So you can just discard me, discard sex, discard the child, because not only is this ability being provided to you, you believe I don't have no value. You don't need me to protect you. You believe you don't need me to provide. You believe you don't need me in the house. You believe you don't need me for nothing. You don't even need me to create a child. You can go get artificially inseminated. So feminism is the backbone of Planned Parenthood. If you teach black men and black women to value each other again, somebody's going to say, I want my kid. So the black man don't value the black woman don't value the black man. We only come together for things that we need each other with, which is sex. And now with this artificial intelligence crap and these AI sex dials, we don't even need each other for that.
That's going to be passé in a minute, right?
Yeah, so it'll be like, what do I need you for? So what's happening is we being subconsciously taught to devalue each other so much, even with these masks. The mask eliminates the brain's ability to detect human presence. You know, micro expressions, physical body language, that lets your body know it's a consciousness in there.
Welcome to Miss 5MT. This is the 5MT channel. I am Miss 5MT, and this video that you have just seen is Young Pharaoh explaining how
she's trying to break his video down.
Has affected and will continue to affect the black community. Now, as you
It has his name on it though.
Yeah.
That's
so,
how she got the views.
So now, I'm just gonna go find the original video and just scroll.
See, I'm gonna start naming my YouTube videos Tupac scene in New York or some shit.
Yeah. Conversations with Leon Kennedy. This might be it.
Shocking, hard-hitting film exposing the darkest secrets of the FBI and CIA. 1,000 pieces. Hard-hitting film exposing the darkest secrets of the FBI and CIA.
What it is, the Egyptians saw food. Forces behind Planned Parenthood, because if you value me, you will value what we create together. And the fact that you don't value, somebody's going to say, I want my kid.
The homeless.
Right.
You know, people just walk over a person.
Right.
And even the term, the homeless. Well, wait a minute. Don't these people have names? Is this not Millie?
Exactly.
Isn't this Joe? But it's the homeless all clumped together.
Exactly. We don't even identify. We don't even respect their individuality. So people don't see we're digressing. It's called technocracy. And I'm just throw this out there. I'm into political science, and I know a lot more than what I let off. There are a lot more parties in this country than Republican and Democrat. Particularly, the Democratic Party has made a lot of behind-the-scenes with political figures who hide in the shadows. So we know about bureaucrats, but a lot of people don't know about kleptocrats, and a lot of people don't know about technocrats. And so, just like I consider myself to be a meritocrat, why can't I have a political party for that? Why do I have to vote Republican or Democrat? It all comes back to choice. I really don't have a choice. I only can choose from what you're forcing me to choose. And where I'm going with this is where, when it comes to technocracy, what's happening is you have people, specifically these big tech companies, who like to censor people. What these technocrats are doing is they, just to give a basic definition, they believe the world should be ruled by technology. And they value technology above the human mind. And you have so many parties behind the scenes who are involved in what we call pay to play, a plan. So what we don't realize in America is we don't just have a treasonous, corrupt Democratic Party issue. We have multiple invaders, state and international, multiple political agendas, multiple entities who are all paying to play with each other and making sure, okay, we are not going to fight over the pie. We're just going to take small pieces of it and we're going to make sure they don't get no pie. So what's happening is the problem is not just racism. The problem is racism, Satanism, Democrats, technocrats, kleptocrats, bureaucrats, communists, socialists, Marxists, and immoral people, and ignorance. We have about 20 different things in this country that we have to cure. And wrapping that all up and bringing it back to this point, the black community is at the bottom. And all of these problems have been built on us. So when I look at how we heal ourselves, we can destroy all that if we simply value ourselves. Because as complicated as that system may sound or seem, none of that can work if you simply value each other. And be enslaved to technology if I value human and natural experiences over a cell phone. I can never be addicted to my phone if I value actually talking to a person. I could never abort a child if I'm consciously aware of the child I'm creating and have sex with a woman that I actually value. So all of these people share one thing in common. Evil. They have a disconnected level of rationale. And you may not have more money than these people. You may not have more technology than these people. But as long as you know what they all share in common, you know your common enemy, and you can defeat your enemy by what they have in common. And what your enemy has in common is that they share the propensity of wicked thought. And as long as you don't engage in wicked thought or bad suggestions, you can never be influenced by people who give you those suggestions.
That was a bit all over the place.
Well, he kind of
video, but like he made total sense. Show he's like, yo, everybody wants to kill y'all, and that's just another way. Like, and this bitch is racist. And,
but that lady, the other lady we watched, who I actually posted her video on my Facebook page, sitting at the desk, and she broke down technocracy. But like I said, I've been listening to Alex Jones for a long time.
It just was like he was talking about abortion, and I was waiting for the segment where he talked about the history
and
of
didn't
abortion.
get to it.
You know what I mean? So now it's just something.
And then he says, I know a lot more than I lead on, but you won't tell your viewers. And
like he was doing an interview with somebody, so it's like he might have just been doing.
Yeah.
Because normally with his like 2-hour video, this was like 13
it goes
minutes.
in depth, yo.
Yeah, he does give you everything, PowerPoints and whatever.
So he just tried to put out a lot of talking points all at once for that one, because like you said, it was somebody else's show. Yeah. Look up David I-C-K.
The Lizard Man.
Yeah. If he has anything new, like recent in the past few months or anything, I want to start back listening to a lot of different people and start getting their perspectives. I listened to David Icke for years and years. Don't really listen to him at all anymore because of like his alien theories and a lot of other stuff. But his information is valid when it comes to political conspiracies and how governments operate. I was thinking about him the other day. Like, I wonder if he's putting out any new content. He's getting old now, yo. He's in his 60s. Jordan Maxwell, he's probably in his 70s by now. I used to listen to Jordan Maxwell a lot, yo.
Things that on free speech and who controls the world. I still want to see this history of abortion. Abortion wasn't always taboo.
Oh, well, go ahead and play that one first then, since we were already on that topic. Yeah, because he didn't give us much history just now.
Yeah, this video is only a minute, so I don't know how much history it's going to be.
There was a time when abortions were simply a part of life in the United States. Historian Leslie Reagan says up until around 1880, abortions were legal and widely practiced. They were only illegal after quickening, a subjective term used to describe when a pregnant woman could feel the fetus moving. In her book, When Abortion Was a Crime, Reagan says not even the Catholic Church believed life existed before that. Before 1880, abortion drugs were a booming business. Those who wanted to regulate that business were mainly worried about poisoning, not, as Reagan notes, moral, religious, or political issues. But the American Medical Association began a crusade in 1857 to make abortion illegal. In 1873, Congress passed the Comstock Law, which banned abortion drugs nationwide. By 1880, abortion was illegal in most states unless it was necessary to save the life of the woman. But why? According to Reagan, the initial desire came from physicians who wanted to push out their competition, primarily midwives and homeopaths. Leaders also feared abortion was contributing to the fall of birth rates among white women. It wasn't until the 1960s, when the women's liberation movement gained steam, that reproductive rights took center stage. Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion in the United States, passed in 1973. But since then, states have enacted more than 1,000 laws that limit access to the procedure.
You know they've been doing abortion since the 1800s. It's an old-ass practice.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is another dream.
For as long as men and women have been having children, they've been trying to figure out how not to. Artifacts dating back to ancient times have shown that contraceptives have been used for thousands of years. Unsurprisingly, not every method was all that effective. In ancient China, concubines would drink a cocktail of lead and mercury. Unfortunately, the side effects included sterility, brain damage, kidney failure, and death. Ancient Egyptian women would mix honey, sodium carbonate, and crocodile dung into a thick paste they would insert into themselves before having sex. In Greece, in the year 200, a gynecologist named Ceraunus advised women to hold their breath during intercourse and sneeze afterward. And in the Middle Ages in Europe, women believed tying weasel testicles to their thighs or around their necks during sex would prevent pregnancy. But it wasn't all a shot in the dark. Many modern forms of contraception have roots in the ancient past. For example, ancient cave drawings found in France appear to show an early version of a condom, and a prototype of the cervical cap has been used since Casanova's days. In his memoirs, written in the 18th century, he describes using partially squeezed lemon halves to do the trick. The modern history of not having babies begins in the mid-1800s, when vulcanized rubber was patented and condoms could be mass-produced. Yet for much of the 19th and early 20th centuries, women had a hard time getting their hands on effective contraception. Anti-obscenity laws in the U.S. restricted anyone, including doctors, from spreading information about it. But that didn't stop women from trying to prevent pregnancy. Many women would use household products such as Lysol or Coca-Cola, which they believed would kill sperm. Advertisements for Lysol even endorsed the product as a way for women to protect their married happiness. All of that changed in 1960, when the FDA approved an oral contraceptive pill, thanks to the tireless efforts of activist Margaret Sanger and a team of doctors. Within 5 years, millions of American women had prescriptions for the pill. In the following decades, other forms of reliable contraception appeared, including IUDs. Safe and effective birth control still isn't a universal privilege. A 2013 report found that 222 million women from developing countries around the world said they wanted to use birth control but didn't have access.
Well, that's interesting. So the 1800s, that's when shit got real.
The motherfucker, but that's.
So nothing got approved.
But that's still not abortion, though. This is.
Well,
preventative.
that was like birth control.
Yeah, that's preventative measures. Once we understood, okay, well, the sperm has something to do with the babies, so let's try to stop this shit. So all types of contraceptives to prevent pregnancy, but not the actual. When they understood, okay, you are pregnant, now what? You can't prevent this, so like the abortion, the act of actually, I guess. I don't know if there's the right language, killing the fetus, or I guess you are aborting the fetus. So, like, who did that? Because, yeah, they've been using sheepskin condoms, like sheep testicles and all kind of shit for thousands of years. Like, I want to know who was the first person, like, you know what? I'm going to kill that baby inside you. You already pregnant? You sure? You sure? All right, I'll take care of that.
And then like I'm looking at all these videos, like I carried out my own abortion, like no.
Ooh.
If you can't swallow a pill, and that's the thing about it, like I have a lot of female friends. Like I said, I've never been pregnant, but I've had a couple friends who've had abortions. And when I tell you they bled and were in pain, I mean, they were just out of it for like a day or two. Like, even after you take the pill, they were just messed up. So, I don't wish that on nobody to do it to yourself. And I think that was a thing too, like a lot of people were getting those like back alley abortions and like messing themselves up in the process. It's really hard to find like something on when the first abortion.
You might have to Google it, like who performed the first abortion, or
Ooh, what's this? Gynecology. Ew. What's this? What kind of surgery is this? Some type of reproductive health. We gotta solve this mystery. Biology and history of abortion. I hope this is not like the American history. This is just like the real history.
So we'll start a little slow because I'm sure some people are coming. So we'll continue with abortion. We had 2 lectures ago we talked about abortion.
The continuation.
So the center of the abortion debate is, when does life begin? And luckily that's a question that biology can say something about. What statement is the most common statement made on this? Not your own personal opinion, and not an educated opinion. What do people on the street say mostly about when life begins? What do you hear?
When the baby's heart beats.
What?
Conception.
At conception.
At conception. They say that's life. You conceive, as soon as you know you can piss on
Yes,
the thing
indeed,
and say
that's
you're pregnant,
the
the
most,
baby's in there. That's
Oh,
life.
yeah, he did say majority of people.
Yeah, the
I
majority
feel
of people will say at conception.
And so
I
this
feel
is
like
in
once
the
you pass the
newspapers,
first trimester, your baby's heart was beating,
or
then
media.
you're wrong.
So George Will, how many of you heard of George Will, a famous Washington correspondent? You've heard him. He's syndicated like everywhere. Quote, "It is a biological fact, not a theological postulate, that such life is a continuum from conception to death." And then, just before I was writing this lecture the first time, I was scanning the New York Times, as I always do, and there was a letter from the editor, letter to the editor, from a pro-life writer. "It is a scientific fact, as any basic biology text will confirm, that life does begin at conception. The fetus is a live human being, distinct from, while dependent on its mother. It deserves the full protection of its rights." And that's what's coming out there. Not only is it what most people personally believe.
No, this is what Matt Dillahunty says. He says a fetus doesn't have rights and the mother does. And the fetus doesn't have the right to use the mother's body to sustain its life if the mother doesn't want to. And so that's his pro-choice argument. But this dude is like, oh, the baby has rights. Like,
well, I don't know if he's saying that's what he thinks or if he was saying that's what people, because he said people believe.
Okay.
Just before I was writing this lecture the first time, I was scanning the New York Times, as I always do.
Oh, he said the writer in the New York Times.
From a pro-life writer.
A pro-life writer said
It is a
that.
scientific fact, as any basic biology text will confirm, that life does begin at conception. The fetus is a live human being, distinct from, while dependent on its mother. It deserves the full protection of its rights. And that's what's coming out there. Not only is it what most people personally believe.
The only thing is, like, with all the people in Alabama and all the other states that are like, no abortion.
Or you go to jail over that shit.
Then y'all need to adopt all the kids and find families for all the kids. Which, granted, I'm sure they can, but it's like, then don't, you know what I mean? Then it's just gonna have a whole bunch of kids in and out of foster care, and like, it's like, for what? Now, like I said, do I think people should get abortions? No, not personally, but if they do it without like shake my head at them. No, I'd be like, hey, you okay? Like, yeah, it's your business. I don't give a fuck. That's why I just don't get it. It's a whole bunch of men telling women what to do with their bodies, and I guarantee when they get their mistresses pregnant, they get abortions.
Exactly. That's why dudes don't really have a. That's why I say I'm just pro-choice, yo. Whatever you want to do, lady.
But babe, that's the thing. Like, say I was like, no, I don't want a kid. I don't want a kid, and you were like, I do want this kid. Like, if you want the kid, I think that the woman should have to have it. It's probably weird, but it's just like, cause if you tell me, hey, I don't want the kid, and I say, hey, I'm having it anyway, we're having a kid. So it's like, I don't, I mean, it is a double standard, but I just try my best not to have double standards. So it's like, if the guy wants the baby, have the baby.
Yeah, but the guy doesn't, his
generally,
body,
the guy is not going to want the baby.
Yeah, but his body doesn't have to suffer anything and potentially risk death due to a, high risk pregnancy or
and that's the thing,
whatever,
like,
you know what I'm saying? The man don't have to take that risk.
You can get an abortion, but otherwise, like I said, again, it's her choice. I'm just saying, me personally, it's like,
yeah.
If my man was like, no, I don't want you to get one, I just have the baby. I might just be like, well, you're going to be a single dad, but here's your kid. Same thing dudes do to girls every day, you know what I mean? Shit happens all the time.
But it's generally considered to be a scientific fact.
Well, we definitely need to keep reproducing and get more black people on this planet.
This is the thing.
Almost indistinguishable. So the question is, you've all had high school biology at least. How many of you had a college biology?
And that's how I feel too. It's like,
and guess what?
The more black babies you abort, the less black people there are. As simple as that.
Isn't at all what a beginning biology textbook says.
But just be careful if you don't want to have kids.
That's all. This is from,
because I feel like,
they send professors.
I might not want a kid right now, but
we're talking about a point that they have.
Because I don't have kids, I feel like that's my
contribution. It shows something
to society.
quite different.
It shows why. We need black child. We need black people in general.
And there's no start point here. Fertilization is one of the events going around the cycle. This is the essence of sexual reproduction. We also know that there's asexual reproduction.
What were the 4 shows we said? Queen's Gambit, Top Boy, Lupin, and what was the other one?
Damn.
I can't think right now.
Yeah, me neither. What was the last? You said the new shows. New shows. Okay.
Top Boy, that was it. Oh, okay, that's what it was.
Okay.
But yeah, now I can't think. Top Boy.
I said Top Boy and
Queen's
Blacklist.
Blacklist.
You said Blacklist.
Blacklist and Top Boy, and then Lupin and Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
Have this stuff at all. And the cycle is the switch between a haploid genome, which means one copy.
Oh yeah, with Top Boy, remember, like we said, watch the
Summer House. You gotta watch Summer House first, cause it's weird. Like it say Top Boy like it's the original one, but it's not. The original one has a subtitle to it.
There's not that many episodes though. What the Summer House was like, what, 5 episodes?
Yeah,
or 6 maybe?
But they're like mini movies. The episodes are 40 something minutes, 50 minutes, commercial free. It's a lot of content per episode, yo.
Yeah, and it's one of those shows you can't take your eyes off.
No, you
of
really
because
can't.
You will miss some shit and be like, huh? Who's this?
They say if you like The Wire or Power, it's just like the British version of that shit, yo. London.
In your breath.
Of each chromosome, and haploid and diploid. Now each cell has 2 copies of each chromosome. And when the sexual reproduction is usually, there's always some version of this 1 copy, 2 copy cycle. And when you look in detail, this is again from the same freshman, very popular, very big selling freshman college biology text. It talks about 3 different sexual life cycles. And in the one that you're most familiar with, which is animals, what happens is you start with a 2N, a multicellular organism, that's you, and then meiosis, the splitting of the chromosomes so that the gametes, this
top
is
boy
2N,
summer house
N
is
being the
first.
number of chromosomes,
And then the one that
starts
says
with
just
2N,
top
there's a
boy.
process called meiosis, in which pairs split and you get cells with only one copy of each chromosome, those are called gametes, or germ cells, and then from another individual you get a second N, and you go back to the diploid phase. So it's again, this cycling around between one copy and two copies of the chromosomes, meiosis, and fertilization. Now in most animals, it happens that the big stage, like us, is diploid. But that is not a universal rule at all. That here is a stage which is fungi and some algae that have it the other way around. They go through the same cycle, but now the big organism is the haploid stage. There's only one copy of each chromosome. And that's growing in your garden.
And then I'll cook something tomorrow.
In most plants and some algae, you have a third possibility, whereas both are multicellular organisms. As the diploid stage is multicellular and the haploid stage is multicellular, and the cycle goes around. So the basic idea is not that there's a beginning, but that life is a cycle. This is what, I don't know what your high school textbook, I was afraid to go look at high school textbooks. My colleagues who read high school textbooks are always horrified. So I didn't go lower than the standard college textbooks. And again, this is not the only mechanism of reproduction. There's of course a whole variety of asexual means of reproduction. So what kinds of things reproduce asexually? With none of this. Bacteria, yeast that makes your bread rise, yeast that makes your beer, yeast that ferments your wine, and yeast is fungi between your toes. They reproduce by, what's the mechanism of their reproduction? Budding. They bud off. Mitosis. What else? What grows in your garden that you eat many mornings? Strawberries. How do strawberries reproduce? Oh, my. You are disconnected from nature. Strawberries grow up. None of you have strawberries in your garden? Or your backyard? Do you know? Who has a garden? Yeah. What? No, she has strawberries, don't have. They have runners. They have what's called rhizomes. They're called runners. And you have one plant, and when it gets big enough and has enough energy, it sends out a runner that grows a root, and grows up a strawberry, and then it doesn't matter whether the runner is eventually cut. And lots of things grow by runners, which is again another asexual form of reproduction. Again, since you don't have yards, so pricker bushes, the bane in the Northeast. How do pricker bushes grow? Runners. That's why your garden gets just overtaken. If you don't get your clippers out and be very brutal, your garden just is overtaken by pricker bush. Bracken is the more technical term for that. So there's a lot of stuff that reproduces by the grass. A lot of the grass grows this way. And parthenogenesis. Anybody know who reproduces parthenogenetically? A lot of some fish do, etc. These fish, worms, all kinds of things reproduce parthenogenetically. So the idea that life begins at conception, that life is any start point, is really not what textbooks are saying. It's saying life is a cycle, repeated, organisms use different versions of the cycle, and many organisms reproduce asexually with no version of that. Okay, this gets a little more interesting when you go from a freshman textbook to an upper level textbook. So a few years ago, I got an old copy of the upper level. This is Biology 241, Reproductive Biology. None of you have taken that. Now it gets really interesting. So this is the beginning of an embryo in your grandmother or in your grandfather. It doesn't matter. And what's you, I don't know, can you see No, this is not. Can you see tiny little dots here? Maybe if we turn up the light, you can see them, but it doesn't matter. Believe me, there's tiny little dots that this line is pointing to. So this is inside your grandmother's womb. This is your mother or your father. When, remember, that's your mother or father sitting in there. And outside your mother and father, in the yolk sac, which you think it was just for eating, there's an epithelial wall. An epithelium is just a set of flat cells like a skin that bound organs are mostly covered around in an epithelium. And some of the cells in the epithelium start differentiating differently than like a skin cell, and they pop out into the center here. Then, as development goes on, of your mother inside your grandmother, or your father inside your grandmother, not inside your grandfather, these cells crawl up into the embryo through a tube, and they come to sit up here in the cells that are going to become the rest of your gonad. So your germ cells start, when a developmental biologist or reproductive biologist discusses this is in a sense the start of life. In your grandmother, in your mother or father's embryo inside your grandmother. And then more events happen in the whole book. It's about those events. Well, what are those events? Many. And so this is on page 7, the beginning. This is what happens in the beginning. And when do we get to fertilization? Well, here's the next one. Coitus and fertilization. And this is on page 201. So there's 200 pages of events that take place in between. And fertilization is not the first or the second, but it's the third kind of event, even in this one chapter. And its purpose is the establishment of diploidy, again referring to the cycle of haploid, diploid. And just to let you know that fertilization is not an essential event, it includes parthenogenetic activation as an equivalent step that can be done in the cycle, as well as fertilization. The difference between asexual reproduction and parthenogenetic is asexual reproduction doesn't go through a halving and a doubling of the chromosomes. In parthenogenesis, you in fact start with a haploid cells, haploid organism, and then that has a mechanism for just doubling it without bringing in genes from somewhere else. So it's like what a cell does is mitosis is the normal state where cells double, but then they split. This is a doubling of the chromosome, but no split. So you go from a haploid stage to a diploid stage. And so while we're on parthenogenesis, I actually didn't know this till I read this. It induces the spermatozoa, induces many remarkable changes in the oocyte at fertilization, but it's not essential for many of them. An oocyte may be activated parthenogenically by a variety of bizarre stimuli, such as electric shock, exposure to various enzymes, or to alcohol. So you guys that think you're having a big role, well, just bring your electric shockers and it'll do almost as well. And they mimic whatever it is that the sperm does. And what's interesting is the embryo, the parthenogenetic, this is a human. This is a textbook of human reproductive biology. It can undergo cleavage, implantation, and development to a stage of beating heart, somites, and forelimbs. The stage at which a lot of the right to life will show you is, well, this is a human already, actually can happen without any intervention of sperm whatsoever. Eventually, in a human, there are parthenogenetic animals and other organisms, but in a human, the embryo eventually, the fetus eventually dies, but apparently it's a deficiency in the placenta, not in the fetus itself. So quite amazing. And again, loosens up your whole mind about what is biology actually saying about.
I'm going through college textbooks on reproduction and at which stage they say life occurs. But he says like you can already kind of trace yourself back to your fucking grandmother's ovaries. If you really look at it, some of those cells are already there. So
you don't like it?
I like the icing part, but
You don't like the icing?
I do.
It's cream cheese icing.
I don't like fruit on cake.
I didn't put fruit. You got a piece of fruit?
I just like, oh, pineapple.
Yeah, that's why
You
I
did
put
just, yeah.
all this stuff on it because I knew you wouldn't eat it. I did put some pineapples on the top, but you can just pick them off.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the thing.
It tastes good though.
And it's not saying that it has a beginning, and it's certainly not saying the beginning is that fertilization. Okay, so having started this train of thought for myself, we've done a freshman text, we've done an upper level text, now let's get into the research literature. Oh, I'm just here's the research literature. This is Science Magazine, which is when all scientists read it, it has the latest, greatest stuff you wish you could publish in it, and so forth, from 2007. And it's about the germline, which is... And in the early embryo,
some new
cells
stuff, if it's something recent, maybe
becoming soma or germline. So when I showed you the yolk sac in your grandmother, the soma, the body, are the cells that stay in the yolk sac and form the lining of the yolk sac and produce the enzymes, I think, which digest.
I'm gonna have to save this video for later because it's still an hour.
Okay.
Fact check. 5G tech invites coronavirus. Coronavirus polygraph fact check. Fact checks the claim that 5G technology has a correlation with the coronavirus. What is this, David, though?
British ex-footballer and conspiracy theorist David Icke gave an interview to London Real TV claiming a link between 5G cell phone technology and the COVID-19 outbreak. What does 5G do? What does 4G do that 5G, but even more? It poisons the cells, which get poisoned by technological electromagnetic fields. This claim is false. The coronavirus pandemic has breathed new life into anti-5G wireless conspiracy theories. Icke went on to claim that Wuhan was the first Chinese city to roll out 5G service just before the coronavirus outbreak. That's wrong too. Wuhan was among several Chinese cities that were first to get 5G. Others included Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, all larger than Wuhan. The World Health Organization, an arm of the United Nations, has found no evidence that 5G adversely affects health. YouTube removed the Icke interview on April 7 after it was live streamed on the platform. The company told the BBC that it determined the video violated its new rules against promoting medically unsubstantiated methods to prevent the coronavirus in place of seeking medical treatment. The fear of 5G has prompted acts of violence. In the United Kingdom and Netherlands, cell towers reportedly have been attacked and set on fire.
When the birds were attacking the tower and people were just throwing up in the streets in the city, right underneath that new 5G tower. Although, I mean, you can't believe anything. That could have just been somebody fucking with us too, but it's like, that bird shit, that shit was not Photoshop. Maybe on how to take control of your life 8 months ago. Lizard people, conspiracy theory explained. Free speech and who controls the world. A story about his awakening, you know?
We thought he was Jesus.
Into this podcast number 76. David is an author and speaker.
It's school. It's open. It's on.
We are multi-dimensional, infinite consciousness, having a brief experience called youth. The focus of attention that the body gives us on a narrow band of frequency, and we call it human, we call it the world, it's just a frequency band of information which we're interacting with like Wi-Fi. I symbolize it in the answer as a bubble. You're in the 5 cents bubble. You put people in the 5 cents bubble, the perceptual bubble, and now instead of getting insight from expanded states of awareness, you are operating in a bubble of perception. And the idea from the cult's point of view is you isolate people in the 5 senses, and then you dictate the information that isolated consciousness gets. So you isolate people in the 5 senses, and then you program their perception of reality. This is exactly why we live in the world we do, and it's exactly why people see the world as they do. Now, how do we burst the bubble? We redefine our self-identity. If you say to most people, who are you? Pleased to meet you, who are you? They'll give you their name, they'll give you where they come from, they'll give you their job, they'll give you their life story, they'll give you their labels. They'll give you all the things that we give labels to. I am a man, I am white, I am British, etc. But they're not who we are. They are what we are experiencing incredibly briefly. And if we can ditch the labels and see them for what they are, a brief experience, and self-identify with the consciousness, ultimately, potentially, all consciousness having an experience, then that very expansion of self-identity, I'm not little me anymore, I'm not Ethel on the checkout or Bill at the call center, I am a state of infinite awareness having that experience, then that expansion of self-identity or triggers an expansion of consciousness. So you're no longer confined in forming your perceptions to the bubble anymore. But when you say, I am consciousness having an experience, everything changes. Two things hold us in servitude. Two things keep us there. Woof, woof, yes sir, no sir. Fear of the unknown, stroke, fear of death, and fear of what other people think of us. From that big game, long game point of view, the things that terrify and limit and freeze people in 5 sense perception don't apply anymore. But people freeze because they're self-identifying with the little I. When you self-identify with the big I, everything changes. And the big I would never, ever subjugate itself to the impositions of other people and the deletion of its freedom. Wouldn't do that. And I'm certainly never going to do it. So we'll see where that goes.
Beyonce taught us that girls run the world, but sadly the queen bee is gravely mistaken. Throughout history, power has always been concentrated in the hands of the few, from the first tribal chieftains and their shamans to today's political elite. But sometimes that power has been held firmly within bloodlines, passed down from generation to generation like a very unearned inheritance. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics Show. Today we're taking a look at the most powerful families in the world. 5. Rothschild family. With a name that pops up in nearly every conspiracy theory out there, it's no surprise that the Rothschilds would end up on this list. Whether they're responsible for assassinating JFK to ensure he didn't invade Cuba, and thus destroy the lucrative sugar market, to having secretly financed 9/11 on behalf of the aliens aliens from Zeti Reticuli so they could eat our brains. If there's a conspiracy theory out there, chances are the Rothschilds are at the center of it. With a family history such as the Rothschilds, though, it's hard to blame conspiracy theorists. Rising from a lowly apprentice working at a small Hamburg bank,
Meyer
Mayer
and
Rothschild
Cheryl
displayed from an
Meyer,
early age a keen interest and talent for finances. In no time at all, Mayer had made himself a prominent member of the global banking industry and would go on to install his 5 sons around the financial capitals of Europe, overseeing operations from London to Berlin. The Rothschilds helped stabilize international currencies through their lending and banking practices with individual governments. While this was generally a good thing as it kept markets stable and people employed, the Rothschilds certainly earned a very pretty penny for their charitable work. As Europe plunged along the Industrial Revolution, the Rothschilds were there to finance Europe's favorite hobby, waging horrible wars against itself. Mostly staying on the right side of history, though. The Rothschilds were quick to lend England about $10 billion in today's dollars to help finance their war effort against Napoleon Bonaparte. By this time, the Rothschilds' fortune was so vast and their financial network so elaborate that they actually received the news of Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo a full day before the British government. Such stunning displays of international power and reach have for a long time cast the Rothschilds under extreme suspicion, and they've throughout history been blamed for pretty much every major war or other catastrophe, often portrayed as nothing more than money-hungry and evil to the point of profiteering from human misery. The truth, however, is that the Rothschilds were simply a family extraordinarily gifted in the world of finance, and their charitable contributions to human society are some of the greatest in history and continue to this day. Or perhaps the Rothschilds paid us to say that, so you won't figure out that they're secretly working for the Zeta Reticuli aliens who definitely don't want to eat your brains. 4. Rockefeller family. If there's a name synonymous with the international power and intrigue of the Rothschilds, it's the Rockefellers. John D. Rockefeller was born in rural New York to a father who was a con man and a mother who was deeply religious. Unlike his Schuckster family, John was often described as a serious, polite, and honest young man. And at age 17, he began working as a bookkeeper at a small produce farm. Working long hours, Rockefeller delighted in the intricacies of the work, yet had a keen mind for finances and budgeting. Seeing an opportunity with the advent of the internal combustion engine, Rockefeller started a business partnership with a friend and his brothers, going into the business of refining oil at a time when everybody else was busy trying to pump it out of the ground. The discovery of giant oil reserves in Texas and the growing exploitation of oil in the Middle East made it clear that this new resource was the wave of the future, and yet very little infrastructure existed for the actual refining of oil into fuel and other products. The oil gold rush had seen entrepreneurs open up prospecting and drilling companies around the world, but a growing need for oil processing was being unmet. This is where Rockefeller and the family came into play. Founding Standard Oil in 1870, Rockefeller's wealth exploded, and he would go on to end up controlling 90% of America's oil pipelines and refineries. After his family's monopoly was broken up by antitrust laws in 1911, the Rockefellers continued to hold on to a large share of national oil production industry. At the time of his death in 1937, John D. Rockefeller was valued at about $340 billion in today's dollars, or 4 times more than Bill Gates. However, in the time since the record high, a rise in international competition and lack of a similar talent for finances by Rockefeller's descendants has seen the family wealth plummet down to an estimated $11 billion, though somehow we suspect that they get along just fine with only $11 billion. 3. The Morgan family. Born to a banker, it's no surprise that John Pierpont Morgan would follow in his father's footsteps and become a banker himself. However, unlike his father, John would go on to found one of the world's most important financial institutions, J.P. Morgan & Company. During a scare in 1893 over the outflow of the U.S.'s surplus gold to foreign nations, the U.S. economy looked set to plummet. But in these dire times, John saw an opportunity that no others did. Putting together a syndicate of bankers, which included the Rothschilds, Morgan used U.S. bonds to buy back gold from foreign investors, thus restoring public faith in the dollar and stabilizing the economy. This gold and bond exchange, however, allowed Morgan to effectively control the U.S. gold supply, which let him finance the creation of U.S. Steel and General Electric, while buying out all competitors, effectively taking over 2 of the most important financial sectors of the entire nation, steel and electricity. Morgan's control over the nation's gold supply at the time, when the national economy, and most global economies as well, were tied to the gold standard, allowed Morgan to manipulate the economy to raise or lower the value of the dollar and consumer prices. And despite ensuring a measure of fiscal responsibility, this is overwhelmingly why the gold standard is a bad thing. no matter what your belligerently libertarian uncle posts on your Facebook wall every other week. Known as an unethical and cutthroat businessman, Morgan bought out, bullied out, or outcompeted any competitors by slashing jobs, reducing wages, and generally doing away with anything even remotely related to workplace safety. If it wasn't generating money, it wasn't worth his time. And after all, the nation was full of peasants to replace those killed or maimed in horrific industrial accidents. With no minimum wage laws or workplace safety standards, Morgan effectively built an empire on heaps and heaps of exploitation and human misery. Which, by the way, is why minimum wage and workplace safety legislation are important things to have. Sometimes government regulations are a good thing to have, though we tend to forget that since we're so far separated from the misery of the Industrial Revolution and its mass exploitation of the average worker, in modern times not much has changed, with JP Morgan widely blamed for helping spread the practices of predatory lending, which led to the 2008 global financial crash. Rumors of the Morgan family being war profiteers and generally banking on any human misery that will make them a single penny are popular. And you know what? Given the family's past, this time it's clear that if anybody is cooperating with the aliens from Zeta Reticuli to eat your brains, it's definitely the Morgans. Yet with such a commanding grip on the global economy, there's little the individual consumer can do to avoid engaging in a JP Morgan-backed business. 2. DuPont family. Sired by a French immigrant who emigrated to the United States in the 1800s, the DuPont family has built an empire based on manufacturing and the distribution of industrial chemicals and military munitions. Initially establishing the family business as a gunpowder manufacturer, DuPont quickly became the largest supplier of gunpowder to the U.S. military, and would go on to begin creating dynamite in industrial proportions. Like so many other monopolies, the DuPont monopoly was broken up in the early 1900s under the Sherman Antitrust Act, but the family still managed to maintain a huge market share of the global munitions industry, having supplied nearly 40% of all the munitions used by Allied forces during the First World War. Unlike the Morgan family, however, the DuPonts felt at least some obligation to the nation they were profiting from. And so during World War II, when the U.S. government needed help producing plutonium for the war-ending Manhattan Project, the DuPont company designed and built one of the largest plutonium plants in the country, all while keeping it an absolute secret to prevent the Axis powers from discovering the U.S.'s research. In the 1950s, after the Soviets exploded their first atomic bomb, the DuPont company once more cooperated with the U.S. government to help America develop the hydrogen bomb, hoping to help the U.S.'s edge over their Soviet competitors. Working hand in hand with the U.S. government, DuPont helped focus the efforts of the nation's scientists.
I said the cake was good. I want some more. I gotta eat. No, I gotta eat something first.
I bet you like a small piece.
Yeah.
I don't like fruit cake. I don't like pineapple cake.
I don't want the pineapple on it. Okay.
I don't know how much time is left in this video. Those are like different video clips. Like I'm not gonna be back in time. Weird things everyone ignores about Queen Elizabeth's marriage. 4 minutes long, this one.
Babe, what do we do with our son gone off to college?
What you'll do is claim a tuition tax credit for him, which I can help file.
I don't understand parents.
File
like,
it
I would
with
be
an
like,
expert,
yes,
or let an expert file for you. Intuit TurboTax Live.
Being married for 7 decades is a major accomplishment for any couple, let alone one that's spent in the world spotlight since the day of I Do.
It has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip have shown the world just how far love can go by withstanding wars, tons of palace intrigue, and of course the pressures of public life.
However, I think that the main lesson that we've learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage.
No marriage is completely easy, however, and even the royal couple has shown some strains along the way. So let's take a closer look at some of the odder facts you may not know about the regal duo. Kissing cousins. It may be surprising to some, but the Queen is actually distantly related to her husband. The two are third cousins through their shared great-great-grandparents, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, who themselves were first cousins. Elizabeth was just 13 years old when she first met Philip, but despite her young age and the fact that they share some of the same blood lineage, she fell for him pretty quickly. But even though they share some family members, Elizabeth grew up on the posher side of the spectrum, while Philip had a different experience. He had a more normal childhood, washing dishes and playing sports through local organizations. And when she fell in love with him, he was a naval cadet, while she was destined to take the crown. Parental approval. In the beginning, George VI didn't exactly approve of his daughter's choice of groom. The king was concerned about British opinion when it came to the idea of his daughter marrying a Greek prince. And it wasn't just Philip's family heritage that affected the king's opinion. Philip's voluminous laugh and wild manners also reportedly got under the king's skin, but in the end, Elizabeth was allowed to marry the man she loved at the age of 21. Making a sacrifice. In order to marry Elizabeth, Philip had to make some changes to his own life. He had to become a naturalized British citizen, and none of his German family members were allowed to come to the wedding, which included Philip's 3 sisters, who had married German men. On top of that, the king did not want to officially announce his daughter's engagement until she was 21, so Princess Elizabeth and Philip had to keep their relationship quiet for some time until it could be announced. Rationing a wedding. When one thinks of a royal wedding, words like glamorous, elegant, and extravagant come to mind. That's certainly been the case in recent generations, as with the nuptials of Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge. However, there were certain budgetary constraints on Elizabeth and Philip's wedding due to the tough times of their union. Great Britain was still recovering from World War II when the couple were wed, so the queen-to-be actually had to use ration coupons to pay for her wedding dress materials. Of course, the government allowed their princess 200 extra coupons for the dress, but still, she shared in the nation's struggles in her own little way. Naturally, the resulting dress was still very beautiful and luxurious. It included a 13-foot-long train and was embroidered with crystals, so she wasn't exactly roughing it with those ration coupons. Keeping a distance. Even though they've managed to make love last all this time, Elizabeth and Philip are still known to keep one another at bay in certain ways. For example, the two have never shared a bedroom with one another and have always instead had adjoining rooms. Given the size of their various castles and royal manors, it's probably not surprising that the two choose to keep their own spaces. But it's been that way since 1949, when they first moved into the Clarence house. What's even more unusual is that when Elizabeth officially became queen in 1953, Philip did not get an automatic upgrade from his status as the Duke of Edinburgh. In fact, it took another 4 years for Philip to become an official prince, which means that the power imbalance between them became even more pronounced than it already was.
Of course, after 50 years of experience, I find there's a great temptation to give advice.
And finally, the two have the very strange habit of very rarely holding hands while in public together. Whereas her grandsons have delighted in giving their loved ones public displays of affection, the queen keeps her perfectly gloved hands all to herself. Thanks for watching. Click the list icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.
I'm the queen. You hold my hand when I tell you. Essence.
You're
just the Duke.
Yeah, I had to upgrade you, nigga. You remember it took you a minute to get your status now. Don't make me...
Don't make me take it back.
Snap that
Besides
shit.
the prenup.
Snatch that shit right off you, boy.
Give me my ring back.
Take your ass back to Greece. Oh, and your sisters can't come to the wedding, nigga. Just let you know now.
And your mama sits in the background.
Damn.
She sits behind the buttons.
Yo, that royalty shit crazy. And then when the young couple with the Margaret or Meghan or whatever, they left the family. It's like, fuck you. They're like, oh, really? Really? Okay, fuck you too then. I ain't know, like, that's a job. Like, you get paid for being a part of the royal family. Oh, what are they gonna do without their royal inheritance? Get a job, nigga.
Get a job.
Friends would walk up to me and just be like, what the fuck is in your mug? And I would just tell them, it's mud.
One of the great targets is the heart. I'm not talking about the physical heart, though they are connected. I'm talking about the heart vortex within the human energy field. The heart chakra, or wheel of light, as they call it in the East. And you know, we think of love in a certain way, being attracted to somebody or loving your kids. But actually, what I'm talking about, and I talk about this a lot in the answer. It's very different. It includes that, of course, but love in its true sense does not say, I want the best for my kids, although we do, of course we do. It says I want the best for everybody. And when you open this, it's not just love in the sense that people perceive it. It opens you to infinity. It's our connection to all that is, has been, and ever can be. And through that connection, you have insight, you have when people have intuitive knowing, where do the hands go? Look, mate, I just know, I just know. This knows, because it does know, because it's connected to that which does know. And when you open your heart, you're opening your connection to a level of awareness that allows you, first of all, to see the connections, because you're coming from that level where everything is one. Therefore, you can see the connections in the reality you're experiencing. But one definition I would give for this kind of love is the absence of fear. I would call evil the absence of love. I think that's what evil is, the absence of love. You infuse love into evil, evil's not evil anymore. It's the absence of love. And this is what this cult is. It's the absence of love. That's why it does what it does. But it's also the absence of fear. Because once you open to this insight, this self-identity, you know there's nothing to fear. Because whatever happens, whatever experiences we're having, there'll be another one along in a minute, we are always an expression, a point of attention within all that is, has been, and ever can be. And however bad the experience we're currently having, that is what we always are. All that is, has been, and ever can be. And so, this does not fear. This will always do what it knows to be right, and therefore does not consider consequences for doing what it knows to be right, because it would never consider doing anything but what it knows to be right. Thus, consequences are irrelevant. This says, I'd like to do this, but what are the consequences? And you'll always find a list of consequences why you wouldn't do it. This says, I do what I know to be right. Consequences, therefore, are not even a conversation. And one of the great fears that people have, well, it's the foundation fear, I think, is the fear of the unknown, which manifests as the fear of death. And the manipulation of the fear of death is the manipulation of this pandemic, where people have been frozen in fear because they fear death. That's why doctors have so much power. Well, actually, you are all that is, has been, and ever can be, and always will be. You just have it in brief experience. So this is without fear. It doesn't consider consequences. What I mean by that is it knows that if you cross the road in front of a truck, you're going to get damaged. But I mean consequences of what will people do or think or say about me, what will happen to me for doing what I know to be right. It doesn't even consider those consequences. I never consider them, because to consider them is to consider not doing what I know to be right. Not having.
My man was wearing this, I would be all over him.
That smells really good.
It smells like my guy's cologne. It smells really good, yeah. Really sexy.
Oh, that smells really good.
A minute. Because you reach this point of connection and this point of insight, you know, I'm not sitting cross-legged on a mountain like the Buddha. Anyone can do this. It's our natural state. We're being manipulated into an unnatural state. This is what I'm describing as our natural state. When you open your heart, you know that death is nothing except a transfer of attention. That's all it is. I've got a picture in the answer, and it's of a bloke with a headset, you know, a virtual reality headset, and he's just taking it off and looking around. And I put a caption underneath, "My God, I've just died." Because that is what death is, basically. It's taking the headset off. It's moving out of this brief experience into the expansive true self. So when you open this, all this comes to you. You know all this. And therefore, this would never be intimidated by authority seeking to impose itself upon you when you know it's not justified and it's about destroying your freedom. This is freedom. It's the freedom of knowing the scale of who we really are. It's the freedom of connecting with all that is. I tell you, when there's a revolution of this, acquiescence is stopped. Never acquiesce to impositions on freedom. Never do it. Always does what it knows to be right. This is the revolution. And the heart is the center of everything. People talk about the physical heart, okay. But if you go back, what they're really talking about is this heart, the energetic heart, the connection out there. And you look at all the things, all the symbolism through the ages and still today relating to this. Open heart, heart of stone, broken heart. You look at all the phrases relating to the heart, and it's because this is the center of everything. And we've been manipulated to think this is the center of everything. It's not. Do you know that the heart is the biggest electromagnetic field, the most powerful electromagnetic field in the body? And this, when it's open, dominates the head. What do people say all the time? What does your head say? Okay, what does your heart say? And they say very different things, because this is out there and this is down here. And when this opens, everything changes, because you change. Everything about you changes. It's what happened to me a long time ago, and changed my life.
And everyone can access this whenever they want.
Anytime they want. And what I would say is, ditch the bloody labels. Stop identifying with labels. They are a brief experience. Even your name is a brief experience. You are the consciousness having the experience. So when someone says to you, "Who are you?"
So is that the same as stop saying mother, father, sister, brother? Get rid of those labels, or you know how they're trying to stop people from saying mother, father?
Because of the whole gender thing?
Yeah, so, but he's not talking that way.
I'll be damned if I stop calling my mother mother, or my child don't call me mother. What are they supposed to call you? Your name?
A parental unit.
What?
Female parental unit. Male parental unit. I need food, nourishment for my body.
FPU. MPU. We need all the FPUs to the front right now immediately.
If you are not a MPU, please do not enter the building at this moment.
It's still a gender though, like, I don't get it. And that's the thing, like, okay, have your shit, but that's where I cross the fucking line.
Don't make me do it.
That's where I cross the line. Like, yo, I'm a woman. You are not a woman. You were not born a woman. If you want to be a woman on paper, fine. But what you're not about to do is take my womb out my body and transplant it into yours. Even when I die, no, you're not using my womb. Like, I don't care. Not using anything. I don't trust them.
They're gonna make artificial wombs, and then they're gonna start taking pig wombs out and implanting them shits in people.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like, yo, like, stop taking shit away from women. Like, you want to take some shit away, take away our pain and our cycles. Like, don't take away everything else. You want to be a woman on paper, fine. But then you need to suffer like we do too. Make sure you get cramps every month, and you gotta go through everything else just like us.
And when this opens, everything changes because you change. Everything about you changes. It's what happened to me a long time ago and changed my life.
And everyone can access this whenever they want.
Anytime they want. And what I would say is ditch the bloody labels. Stop identifying with labels. They are a brief experience. Even your name is a brief experience. You are the consciousness having the experience. So when someone says to you, who are you? You are all that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience. What you call yourself, if you meet someone and people say, who are you? They'll give you their name, they'll give you their job, they might give you their family background, their family history, where they went to school. That's what they're saying they are. Who are you? But that's just what they've experienced. Who am I? All that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience called David Icke. Very brief, very interesting. The point of attention that I am is an expression of the same consciousness that the point of attention that you are is. And the same with all of us. So racism and all these isms and all these divisions, not only undesirable, they are confirmation that those that go down that road are utterly clueless about the nature of reality and the nature of who they really are. And I see anti-racists who are utterly obsessed with race when it's just a brief experience. That's all it is. You are what is having the experience.
No, my brief experience
when that penny
kind of
drops,
up,
and this,
so I
as a
I was
result,
about to say, it won't breathe. Breathe 600 years.
My dream.
Anybody still in the stream? Y'all ready for tomorrow? Shit, y'all about to get a new president.
Being love with life. Just, I mean, the idea of living on this planet. I mean, I have a chance like not a lot of people don't have it. I travel around the world. I've seen so many different countries. I've seen this planet in so many beautiful ways.
I don't look over
and
here.
I've come to another understanding in my life, which is my understanding from a biological point of view.
Oh, it's not there.
And that is, I perceive this planet as heaven. That we were born in heaven. We don't die and go to heaven. We come into heaven.
the heart is the center of everything. And people talk about the physical heart, okay, but if you go back, what they're really talking about is this heart, the energetic heart, the connection out there. And you look at all the things, all the symbolism through the ages and still today relating to this. Open heart, heart of stone, broken heart. You look at all the phrases relating to the heart, and it's because this is the center of everything. Do you know that the heart is the biggest electromagnetic field, the most powerful electromagnetic field in the body?
He's gonna get the same
And
talk
this,
again.
when it's open,
He's just giving the same talk again.
dominates the head.
I recognize something.
Nobody ain't paying attention. That's how you know. You're terrible co-host of Suicide. Let's see. Well, you might not agree with this, but let's watch it.
UFO, do aliens exist?
100%. Look at the night sky. Look at the night sky. What? Are you having a laugh? Oh no! You know that compared with the perceived size of the universe, planet Earth is the equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead. Right? Yeah, that sounds good to me. We're on a billionth of a pinhead, and life as we know it only exists there. Elsewhere? Oh no, you're mad. Oh, of course it exists. It's just a case of what is it, whether it's benevolent or malevolent, and it'll be a mixture of all of them. The idea that we're alone is, well, I mean, they call me mad.
Is military and the government experimenting and researching aliens at Area 51?
Well, not just Area 51, in general. What's happened in the last, 6, 7, 8 months is it's been appearing on things like the Tucker Carlson show on Fox. I think Tucker Carlson, I can't stand Fox, by the way. I can't stand CNN, I can't stand MSNBC or any of them. I can't stand the BBC. But as a journalist who's willing to ask questions the others aren't, and make points the others aren't, and then they've got a lot of respect for Tucker Carlson. And he's had people on his show talking about the fact that and they've had to admit it, that the Pentagon has radar pictures taken by its pilots of craft that are doing things that no technology that we know in the human arena could possibly do. And of course, it's all classified and stuff. So there's two levels of knowledge, you see. This cult operates, if I just explain this, it might make a lot of sense to people, not least for current events. The world is manipulated by a web, and think of a web, a spider's web, and at the center of the web, you've got the spider. The spider is the non-human force. Around the spider, in the strands immediately around the spider, are the most exclusive secret societies, and people in them you probably never heard of. They're the people really running this cult from the inner sanctum. As you come out from the spider in the web, you're now starting to hit the secret societies we do know about, but we don't know what goes on there.
Give me 5 more minutes, we'll get up out of here.
Not to, like the Freemasons, and I'm talking the inner
5
core.
more minutes, guys. I'm about to wrap this shit up real quick.
Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar, the inner core of the Jesuit order, all this.
Yeah, I appreciate
As you
everybody
come out,
kicking it in
eventually
the
you
stream.
meet what I call the cusp organizations, which
Watching
sit
this new
between the
painting
hidden
come
and the
up
seen.
live.
Are the
That
Council
commission
on
work,
Foreign
man.
Relations in
Grateful,
America,
so grateful, so thankful that my
Trilateral Commission,
2021 is
created by the
starting off
Rockefellers and Zbigniew
pretty
Brzezinski,
prosperous.
Jimmy
Yeah,
Carter's
just gotta
former
keep
National
that.
Security Advisor, and the Bilderberg Group, created in Europe at the Bilderberg Hotel. These are cusp organizations that sit between the hidden and the seen. What happens is the agenda for the world comes out from the spider through the hidden, the cusp organizations, and into the society, the arena that we see, the public arena. And there we find governments, government agencies, the banking system, all the Silicon Valley corporations, and so on, media ownership. And in this level of the public arena, it seems to be a series of completely unconnected organizations, agencies, whatever. If you go deep enough into them, and it's all compartmentalized, most people in these organizations haven't got a clue that what they're being controlled and directed to and what the agenda is. They just get on with their lives, get their pay, and go home to their families. But at the inner core of these organizations, actually answering to the spider ultimately, and are making decisions that reflect that agenda of the spider. And in this way, things are happening in a coordinated way that appear to be random. And this can be seen very clearly in my experience with the Brian Rose London Real interview about the coronavirus, which was streamed live, and YouTube took it down virtually the moment, just a few minutes after it finished. And then Vimeo took it down, and then Facebook took it down. It's because if you go deep enough into these organizations, they are controlled by the same force, therefore move as one unit. So LinkedIn then trashed and deleted Brian Rose's account for doing that interview. Because LinkedIn will ultimately go deep enough, be controlled by the same force that controls all the others. This is how it works. And so each country, and it can be explained very simply this way, the way this operates and manipulates globally and could coordinate this coronavirus thing that we're looking at now, current events, is the same as McDonald's, really. McDonald's or any other transnational corporation, I'm just picking McDonald's out of the air, they have a headquarters, say in America, each country, they have their subsidiaries. And the subsidiaries operate in line and to the blueprint of the headquarters. And in the same way, this cult has a central point, and it has its sub-operation networks in each country. And their job is to manipulate that country's politics, business, banking, media, in line with the centrally dictated agenda. And that's why, as this virus hysteria came out of China, basically all countries have reacted the same, because they're working to the same script. And this is how the whole thing works.
Drop it, Ike. Truth bomb.
When we're done with him, there's things in his background. He likes to blow things up. He likes explosives. He had a pirate flag on his house at the time that I first met him. He liked machine guns. He had an illegal fireworks show that would go out in the desert every year that became a world-class event. He got into some legal trouble after he.
They jump right into some crazy dude. Alright, however long it takes me to finish this green, and then I'll wrap it up. Because I'm hungry. I need some food in my belly. Oh, damn, that was way too much. Damn. Gotta go get these burgers popping. It's already thawed out, that ground beef?
The ground beef thawed out, the hot dogs are out, and I brought the baked beans up.
Alright.
And the cake is done. I wasn't coming to play today, baby. I'm not fucking tired. And I'm gonna have a long day tomorrow. Because I'm gonna be leaving out when you leave, right? I'm gonna be in the city tomorrow. Just gotta drive. Gym in the morning or you wanna skip? Gonna do the gym in the morning or you wanna skip?
I don't know. I might go to the gym in the morning.
Oh yeah, you said you wanted to do an early morning stream.
Yeah. Oh, you rather do that?
You wanna do like a quick gym? Well, what time is the gym open?
At 5.
What time did you wanna stream? 5?
Yeah, if we stream in the morning, I'm not going to the gym.
Okay. Well, I guess we can skip tomorrow then, because then you'll have the weekend and you can stream anytime you want. So.
Yeah. And plus, I can actually work on this a little bit in the morning.
I mean, we can always, if we get up super early, we can always like walk the dog or something.
Yeah.
Probably need to do that anyway, since we're both gonna be gone for a majority of the day.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I'll probably just take a little. I'll just have to make an extra stop. But we need to learn how to use the bathroom. Be potty trained.
Yeah.
I'll let that go too. Looks just like it.
And so this is the part where they get iffy, because I'm gonna show her a picture of this, and I hope she doesn't think like this is as far as I'm gonna go, and I didn't have to explain to them, oh, this is just the first layer of paint.
Well, why don't you just send her one tomorrow once you do a little bit more?
No, I like keeping them excited like this. First day, letting them know, you know, you sent me some money, I'm working. You see how much work I got done. And then plus they see what she said that she saw my art in that art group. So she know my shit look good. So she know this ain't, I hope she knows this isn't the final. But some people are like, oh, well, is that too dark? And that's not, I'm like, it's not done yet. It's not done yet.
Was this to her father?
She didn't say. She said, I want a picture of this done. He passed away.
Okay. A family member.
Yeah. Yeah, but she didn't say my father, my uncle, my brother. I should have asked who was he to you, but then I don't know. Like I said, I don't ask the questions. Tell me what you want.
Tell me my money and tell me what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You can't rush perfection. What? I didn't do it. You didn't want to run it over you.
So far, guys, that doesn't look too bad to me.
Shit, you can be done that ASAP. ASAP.
I'm gonna go ahead and get my brushes and whatnot cleaned up. See how that look? I said it once and I'll say it again for the simple fact I cannot say it enough. I always appreciate y'all chilling with me, yo. That's from the bottom, yo. I swear, yo. Just keeping me company in the studio. Watch me do that thing with them brushes and that paint, man. Working on the underpainting for this commission. I just got it today, and you know, work kind of slow. So while I was at work, I just went ahead and printed out the pictures on my little break and shit, so I can get started on it as soon as I got to the house. And it's looking pretty good. Catch y'all guys tomorrow, maybe early in the morning, but tomorrow afternoon for sure. Hope everybody have a good evening. Peace.